All right, so the BMF belt is back on the line. I am, of course, talking about the brilliant fight that was just added to UFC 300. Justin Gaethje going up against Max Holloway. You probably saw the announcement. Dana White came out yesterday, added 2 fights.
Jim Miller, 40 years old, and now he is attempting to break into the top 15 in one of the nastiest divisions in the sport. And he will be facing Bobby Green. Bobby hasn't seen a scorecard in 2 years. Gaethje destroys all guys with leg kicks and power in both hands. Max is regarded by many to be the best boxer in the UFC and has made many top 10 guys look like they don't even belong there with him. 2 of the all-time greats in their division, and this fight will be 5 rounds for the BMF title.
Also, Jim Miller versus Bobby King Green. That's brilliant. That's 2 veterans. And of course, Gaethje versus Holloway for the BMF belt. But you probably saw this because you follow the news of mixed martial arts, because you subscribe to this channel like all the rest. 602,000. Make yourself 602,001. Subscribe to the channel. Anyway, so let's get into this. UFC 300 was already looking pretty tasty in my opinion, right? And it's weird because I do see a few people grumbling on Twitter, a few people bitching and moaning and complaining just because it's the fashionable thing to do.
Jackass.
UFC 300 so far is top to bottom absolutely stacked, and now 2 more brilliant fights added to the card. It's going to be great, but I'm a little surprised. I thought the next fight for Justin Gaethje was going to be against Islam Makhachev. Remember, the lightweight champ, the pound for pound #1 on the planet, came out and said June 8th Justin Gaethje on pay-per-view. Of course, now we know that definitely is not happening because he's fighting Max Holloway, defending the BMF belt. Remember, Masvidal was the first person to own a BMF belt when he took on Nate Diaz, but he never defended that. So, Justin Gaethje making history, defending the belts, but what's at stake here? Well,
there's that BMF belt. I know they're short on guys for UFC 300. That'd be ideal, you know, maybe go out for one for the fans. Everybody would be happy about with that BMF one, you know.
If you were to defend the BMF title, who would be a worthy opponent?
I would say Holloway, but I don't ever want to fight Holloway.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't ever want to. I don't want to punch him.
Just too nice of a guy, or?
Nah, I just don't. It's not necessary.
I need to know why you don't want to punch Max.
I like him too much. I like him. He's a good dude.
He's the nicest guy ever. I fought at Pepsi Center. He ended up driving us around a couple of days. This is before he was in anything, you know. He was like telling us he had everything in his car. It's pretty much he's like telling us I live out of his car with his dog, so. And he drove us, bro. He's like, you guys need anywhere to go. I got it.
We know Max Holloway. I'm the best boxer in the UFC, bruh. Right? His boxing is sensational, and he has been on quite the tear, but he's not the featherweight champion anymore because that champion has a name. That's Alexander Volkanovski. But if you look at Max Holloway, some of the wins, some of the performances, and the style in which he does it, it's second to none. Fair play to him stepping up and taking on Justin Gaethje. That's a tough fight. Stepping up a weight class, taking on one of the hardest hitters, one of the best anti-wrestlers, and one of the baddest motherfuckers in the game. That's why he's got the belt. But Holloway recently retired Chang Sung Jung, beat Arnold Allen before that, a man that was on an 11-fight win streak. And yeah, before that, he lost to Volkanovski. And yes, he's lost 3 times. But outside of Volkanovski, and maybe Ilia Topuria, in fact, yeah, outside of Volkanovski, right now, he's the next best featherweight on the planet. But we know he hasn't got a case just yet, a shot just yet at taking on Volkanovski for a 4th time. So what's he doing? He's taking on the biggest, baddest, best fights that he can. That's why he's stepping up a weight class. But outside of Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez beat him, Kelvin Kattar. That is when he announced, I am the best boxer in the UFC, brah. And I apologize to the Hawaiians. I can't do a Hawaiian accent, brah. Before that, took out the legend Frankie Edgar. And how about this for a run? He did lose to Dustin Poirier when he tried to become the interim champion of the world. He beat Brian Ortega, Jose Aldo twice in a row, Anthony Pettis, Ricardo Lamas, Jeremy Stevens.
Who the is that guy?
The former lightweight champ, Charles Oliveira, Cub Swanson, Cole Miller, Akira Karasani, right? The name value drops because he was making his own name in the UFC, but now he's going up against Justin Gaethje. But will this be the expiry date? Will this be the last we ever see of the legendary chin of Max Holloway? The man's never been knocked out. He's fought all the best fighters in his weight class and the weight class above, Poirier, and now Justin Gaethje, and he's still never been knocked out. Yeah, he's lost, but so what? You fight the best people in the world. That happens. But I saw a meme just recently saying, will this be the end of his legendary chin? Right? Because when you look at Justin Gaethje, man, he's vicious on the feet. Just knocked out Dustin Poirier. Beautiful head kick. Rafael Fiziev, one of the best strikers the UFC's got. Beat him at his own game. Destroyed Michael Chandler in one of the best fights of the year. All right, maybe didn't destroy. Put a good beating on him, though. Tony Ferguson, that was nasty. Donald Cerrone, TKO. Edson Barboza knocked him out. James Vick, same thing. Before that, Michael Johnson in his UFC debut. So this fight will play out on the feet. Now, when you look at this fight, it's on paper. It's all leaning towards Justin Gaethje, but you can never count out Max Holloway. They're both 5'11". Gaethje has a 1-inch reach advantage at 70 versus the 69 of Max Holloway. And the reality is he just hits harder. Max Holloway gets the job done with the hands, of course, but it's more of an accumulation. He's not really a one-hitter quitter. He's not knocking people out like Gaethje did against Dustin Poirier. Let's have a look. He does have 11 knockouts. Chang Sung Jung was one of them. You go back to Jose Aldo in 2017. That was the TKO before that. Before that, the other one with Jose Aldo as well. Stopped Anthony Pettis as well. TKO to the body. But I'll say it like this. He doesn't have the raw power that a Justin Gaethje does. But he does probably have better speed, probably has better technique, but he is the lighter guy and he won't be as strong. So what do you think? Who takes that fight? I will say this, all credit to that man for stepping up and taking on this challenge, because it's a phenomenal fight and he knows. He already knows this is a tough fight. Also, added to the card, as I said, Jim Miller taking on Bobby Green. Jim Miller, this will be his 44th fight, UFC 100, 200, 300. By the way, 44 fights in the UFC, not in his glittering MMA career. And we just saw him at the weekend taking on his opponent there, Gabriel Benitez, and he looked phenomenal. Even though the man is 40 years old, he does not appear to be slowing down. Saturday night, the leg kicks were phenomenal. The boxing was great as always. And of course, he finished with a submission like he usually does in round 3. Before that, though, against Jesse Butler, how many seconds? 23 seconds, boom, turned his lights out. Submitted Donald Cerrone, knocked out Nicholas Mota, and knocked out Eric Gonzalez. The man is 5-1 in his last 6, and he still got it for sure. And Bobby King Green, we love this man. He's a real one. He shows up every time. Slick boxing, excellent wrestling, fantastic takedown defense. Knocked out Grant Dawson, submitted Tony Ferguson, and he got knocked out in ridiculous fashion in Austin, Texas, when he took on the short notice replacement, Jalen Turner. But don't doubt this man, and don't doubt UFC 300. As I said at the beginning of the video, people talking shit. This isn't me being a company man. This fight card is absolutely phenomenal. Let's go through it. So Jim Miller, Bobby Green, tell me that's not a good fight. Next fight announced so far. Davison Figueiredo, former champion, going up against Cody Garbrandt, former champion. 2 former champs. Bo Nickel, one of the brightest prospects in all the combat sports, going up against Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage is the next logical, progressive matchup for him, so that's going to be interesting. Moving on, featherweight, Kelvin Kattar. We all love watching Kelvin fight, going up against Aljamain Sterling. Another former champion, Yuri Prohaska, former champ, going up against Alexander Rakic, one of the top light heavyweights, in a very pivotal matchup. And again, another champion, former champion in Yuri Prohaska. Moving on, Charles do Bronx Oliveira, former champ, right? A man with the most submissions, the most finishes, the most bonuses in all of the UFC. Excitement personified, going up against Arman Tsarukyan, and the winner will challenge Islam Makhachev. Tell me that's not a good fight. And we're still not done. By the way, then it's Justin Gaethje. We just talked about that at length for the BMF belt. And so far, the leading fight, and I don't know if it will be the main event, but it could be the main event, Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. That's a great fight. Zhang Weili, look at those fights with Rose Namajunas. What she did to Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
phone home.
The way she just absolutely mauled Jessica Andrade to become the champion of the world. I'm excited for that fight. And by the way, that is only 8 fights announced so far. Sometimes on a UFC card, there's 15 fights, minimum 11 or 12. So there's still a good amount of fights yet to be announced. But it's popular to bitch, it's popular to complain, so go ahead and do it. Call me a company man all you want to do. That's a great fight card, okay? Miller versus Bobby Green, that's a main event on a fight night. Figueiredo Garbrandt, main event on a fight night. Bo Nickel, one of the brightest prospects. Keita Aljamain Sterling, that's a co-main or a main event on a fight night. Prohaska Rakic, main event. Oliveira Armasol Rukian, that's a solid co-main on a pay-per-view. Main event on a fight night. Gaethje BMF, Holloway, that's a main event. Zhang Weili Yan Xiaonan, that's also a main event. It is a fight card full of main event matchups. But yet, there's people out there that still like to bitch. Call me a company man or don't. Let me know what you think of the new matchup. I respect Max Holloway big time. This man has done this before. He's taken on tough challenges. He's gone up against Dustin Poirier. Remember, he stepped up against Khabib Nurmagomedov on short notice. Granted, the fight never ended up actually materializing, but he was willing to do it. Okay? Max Holloway, big respect. Justin Gaethje, big respect as well. I guess the risk for Justin Gaethje, if he loses this, then his title shot against Islam, well, that's out of the window. Who wins these fights? What do you think of UFC 300? Thank you for watching. And as I said, if you haven't, subscribe and ring the bloody bell. Take it easy.